What's up, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of the CHGO Bears Podcast, presented by PointsBet. Use promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. I'm your host, Nicholas Moriano, filling in for Adam Hogue, who's on vacation, and Will DeWitt. They're both on vacation, but that's all right, because we got you covered with a great lineup of guests this week. And for today's show, I have 2 guys that I respect a hell of a lot, and they know a lot about the Chicago Bears. I have Lester Wiltfong Jr., who is the editor-in-chief at Windy City Gridiron, host of the T-Formation Conversation podcast. He's also the co-host of Bear and Balance. And I also have Khari Thompson, who covers the New England Patriots for WEEI, and he's also the co-host of the I Think I Know Basketball podcast. And I kind of want to start right there, Khari. You have your Boston Celtics in the finals with the Golden State Warriors. Who you got?
Well, I'll take a slight thing here where they're not my Boston Celtics because I'm a Chicago guy or Chicagoland guy, so Bulls fan, forever and ever. But I'm not gonna lie, man. I think the Boston Celtics are extremely battle tested. I think the Warriors are probably the better team. But I feel like we've seen this movie before a little bit where. If you can kind of make things muddy with the Warriors, it's possible to beat them. So I'm not fronting on this. I got Celtics in 7.
Okay, I like that.
I'm not being a homer about it. I think the Celtics can do this.
No, I mean, hey, they're obviously in the finals for a reason, so it's going to be an entertaining finals, however way you look at it. Lester, for you, man, like I'm coming off a Memorial Day weekend that's been, I think, just family filled and just a lot of hanging out with friends and family that I hadn't seen in a while. How was your Memorial Day weekend?
That was good. It was real quiet. Just some cookout in the backyard is all I did, and just kind of chilled out and then caught up on some TV shows, binging a little bit. That's really all I did. Kind of.
What are you watching right now?
What am I watching right now? Trying to catch up on Ozarks.
Okay.
Right now, and then when that finishes, we'll pop over to Stranger Things because that just popped out as well. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. Those first, so I'm through episode 4, Stranger Things right now. That's a lot.
I heard it's intense.
Yeah, man. I watched the episode last night, and it's like, okay, yeah, sure. You kind of have an idea of like maybe how it might turn out, but still, it's like my nerves are like really frayed right now. Like I need to like drink a beer, chill out before I go to sleep because that was a bit.
Man, Khari too. It's like I still need to catch up on season 3 and to finally they're in season 4, right? And I heard the first episode of this newest season is kind of tough with with everything going on. But I need to do a better job of binge watching all these shows. Like anything with Marvel, I still need to catch up on all the TV shows. I did see the new Top Gun though, Top Gun Maverick. I freaking loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Yeah. And afterwards, after seeing the new one, I actually watched the old one. I'd seen it once before, maybe like 10 years ago, but I watched the old one.
It still holds up.
It still holds up. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I got to say, as your resident dinosaur guy, I'm also going to recommend binge watching Prehistoric Planet. Yes. It is the dopest, most accurate look at dinosaurs that we currently have. I even got my brother got into it. I had him over at the house for Memorial Day and I showed him a clip and he was like, "Hey, can we watch that dinosaur thing?" And I was like, yes. I just reeled him in. Yes. For those of y'all who don't know, I used to study paleontology. I've been on dinosaur digs. I did the whole thing before I ended up in sports. So yes, dinosaurs all day. Watch Prehistoric Planet is cool.
when you were like digging up fossils and stuff, did you find like when the Bears were good in that type of
Oh,
realm? Because like, man, it's been a while, but that's an interesting fun fact from Khari there about and I'm so into it too. I only watched one episode of the show and I'm hooked. So that's one that I need to continue watching. But cool. All right, everyone's got their own shows that they're watching, and if this CHGO Bears podcast has turned into, obviously you get your Bears content, but hey, you need some show recommendations? We'll get that here as well too. But I know a lot of people are tuning in, and especially because I have two great guests like you, people in Bears Twitter that I can trust who have great opinions and just great analysis on this team. And where I kind of want to start this conversation with you guys is with a former Bear who's now on a contending team with Akeem Hicks. Signing that 1 year up to $10 million deal with the Buccaneers. Guy that played 6 seasons in Chicago. You guys, we all know the force, what the defense was like when Akeem Hicks was on it when he was healthy. But that's been the question mark with him as of late. Only played 9 games last season. Over the past 3 seasons, he's missed 20 games. But for you, Lester, in the Bucs, what are they getting? What do you think they're getting in this version of Akeem Hicks? We know what he's been able to do when healthy, but what do you think they're getting now?
I mean, it's the key is there is health. I mean, if he stays healthy, he is as disruptive as ever. You have to look at a guy like him with his injuries. Is he injury prone or is he unlucky? I think there's a difference to make there. And I think with Hicks, with the elbow, it was just a really weird situation where it got caught between helmets there. Then the stuff last year, and it's are these all things that are piling up where his skills have diminished now over time? Or is it unlucky? I think it's unlucky. I think he's going to be fine. I think the Bucs are going to be smart. They're not going to overuse him like he was used quite a bit in Chicago. He's 32 now, I believe. So, he still has some prime left in him, but you can't play 75, 80% of the snaps anymore. He has to have that scaled down a bit. And I think the Bucs will do that. And I think they'll be smart and they'll understand that he's a huge part of that defense now.
Khari, what about you and Akeem Hicks?
Definitely. And you know what? There was definitely a part of me that hoped that the New England Patriots would find a way to lure their old guy back to Foxborough, because I mean I had so much fun just watching that guy play, the edge he plays with. Of course, when you look at the contract, ain't no way Bill Belichick was shelling out up to $10 million to bring Akeem Hicks back home. He's like, he might have been the one who got away, but he doesn't want him that bad. You know what I mean? At the same time, like, yeah, I think when you look at what the Bucs are doing right now and things like trading for Shaq Mason, a proven veteran that Tom Brady, really likes, and, grabbing Akeem Hicks to kind of fill in the void, that's being left by Sue, right? It's like they're trying to stock things up for that win now kind of moment, right? And Akeem Hicks, for 1 season, if you can keep him on the field and keep him productive, that's a nice move for a team that is trying to compete for a Super Bowl right now. Because as Lester said, I mean, if he is healthy, he's a force. He is an absolute force. And I think that, that defense in particular, they've struggled the last couple of years, weirdly enough, with defending the pass. And some of it was because of injuries, right? But, that secondary could be had all over the place, right? And that's one of the reasons they, didn't make it past the Rams, because in the end, when they really needed their secondary to make a stop, they couldn't get it. And so that's also a way of maybe helping protect that, because Akeem Hicks offers you value as a pass rusher when he's going right as well. So again, it's just another way of stacking the deck and making your team as good and as deep as possible for what I think they're hoping for is, let's win a Super Bowl with Tom Brady right now, because we don't know if he's going to play next year or if he's going to be playing for us next year.
Yeah, very good point. I mean, also just seeing Akeem Hicks next to Vita Vea, like, good luck offensive line.
A lot of beef.
That's a lot of beef, a lot of force, and a lot of trouble that opposing teams are going to have.
Too.
Exactly. That's another
Logan
one.
Hall to that mix, that is a problematic front.
Yeah, the Bears do not have the Bucs on this schedule this season. That's probably a good thing for the Bears moving forward. But real quickly, you guys, I just wanted to touch on also in former Bears players news. Back in March, the Bears officially designated the release of Tariq Cohen and Danny Trevathan as post June 1st cuts. So the team will get around $7.2 million in cap this year, and officially that goes into effect tomorrow. Bears have currently about 15.7 million. So I believe they still have to sign their top 3 draft picks, so you have to account for that to be eventually done. And before we actually went live, I'm like, Lester, is there any Bears free agents that you're like clamoring for? And you know what? No. And I'm in the same exact boat. Khari, is there anybody that's like, oh man, the Bears should still look into this guy? And if you don't have a name, I'm gonna throw somebody out there. And it's not even something that I really want, but hear me out. All right.
Go for it.
Here we go. So there's a guy by the name, and actually Justin Fields brought his name up in an article with Bleacher Report. They said they don't have an Odell Beckham. They don't, right? They don't have an Odell Beckham Jr. He's 29 years old. He tore the ACL in the Super Bowl. And I'm not saying the Bears should go do this. This is just, hey, maybe they have some cap space. But most likely Odell would not be ready for the beginning of the season. Probably would come in healthy, maybe healthy, halfway, if that. But as a guy that has proven himself in this league, obviously wasn't probably in the best situation in Cleveland. Would that be a nice addition for a Bears offense? It's probably honestly going to take some time getting used to all the new pieces with the new offense, and obviously Justin Fields getting acclimated to the receiving core that he has, that maybe halfway you can add an Odell Beckham Jr. for what I would think would help get the best evaluation out of a Justin Fields in a year 2 move. Is that something even crossing any Bears fans' mind? Would you want that? Is that something to consider? Or is that just Nick just making up something, bringing it on this show, and we'll talk about it?
I think it's a good move for the player. I mean, for the Bears, getting a player of that caliber would be great. But I think we've seen how Ryan Poles have operated this entire last few months. There has been some vets on the market that he just kind of passed on. I think he's content in letting Justin Fields roll with Darnell Mooney, Byron Pringle, Equinemius St. Brown. I think he believes in his receiving core much more than the fans do. I think he believes in Justin Fields to kind of take this offense to another level where he can get the most out of these guys. And I think if you get a guy like Beckham, first, does he want to go to Chicago? Chicago's going to be bad this year, probably. It's going to be, if you do sign a guy like him, you're going to have to make it at least a 2 or 3 year deal to kind of make the rehab worth it. So from a fan standpoint, I love to see the Bears add more weapons. I just can't see the Bears going that route.
Yeah. And I think that the other thing being, this feels for so many reasons like let's see what we've got in a bunch of rookies and undrafted free agents and young guys, because this is not a year that the Bears are trying to be competitive. Like they want to be competitive like generally in NFL games, but they're not trying to win a Super Bowl this year. You know what I mean? So I think that this is going to be a year where you wouldn't necessarily sign an Odell Beckham Jr. because you want to play Velus Jones, right? And you want to see if Byron Pringle's any good or if EQ's any good. One guy that I had thought of, right? So I've seen a couple of people commenting on like a JC Treader, which would be that would be a nice move. But again, I think it's about the price tag. One person that I had kicked around randomly, and it is a name that not a lot of people are going to be that familiar with, maybe casually, is Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, who was with the Chiefs a couple of years ago at right guard. And he played for the Jets last year, I believe. And he's currently on the free agent market. He wouldn't necessarily cost much. And that's a guy I think is probably, assuming he has some tread left on the tires, he had some knee issues, but, he was able to come back and play last year a little bit. I would look at him as if he's healthy, that's probably an immediate upgrade over anything they currently have at right guard, like right now. And so, and again, he has a connection to Ryan Poles from his times with the Chiefs. So I would not be surprised if Ryan Poles has that name somewhere floating around, and just like, hey, as we get closer to the season, like, hey man, how you feeling? Would you be interested in giving it a run back with us? It's not like, he played for the Jets last year, so I'm pretty sure he's willing to play anywhere. So I don't know, that kind of signing I could see as being, depth / like, hey, I think you're good enough to immediately come in and start here, because right now, I mean, you could argue that they don't have the starting right tackle or starting right guard, I should say, of this team on the roster.
No, it's a good point because from the voluntary mini camp practices that I've been able to watch, been rotating between a Sam Mustipher, Dakota Dozier will come in for a series of reps, then it'll be Mustipher. It's like regardless of where you're at, it's not a good situation to be in, but it is still early on. Maybe you'll see what happens during training camp. There's always those unsurprised cuts that you didn't see coming. It's like, okay, maybe we can bring you on. You could be a day one starter because of the lack of competition. But just wanted to bring up a name that everybody knows and kind of talk it out with you guys. But I see majority in the chat here. It's like, just sign the best O-line available. I get that too. I get the reasoning there, and just the reserve some people have on the Bears offensive line because there's a lot of unproven guys. But we're gonna get to the defense in the second segment of the show. But before we do, the best way to support CHGO is to download the PointsBet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. If you do that right now, you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. But that's not it. If you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. I'm rocking the Bears CHGO drip here, as we like to say on the show, so you can get that if you feel inclined to. And that's $2,000 in free bets, a free CHGO membership, and a free t-shirt from that CHGO locker, all for making more than a $50 first-time deposit at PointsBet. If you have any questions, you can email pointsbet@allchgo.com, and we'll help you out. PointsBet is your home for live in-play betting, and it just got even better. Introducing PointsBet's new feature, Live NBA Same Game Parlay, and we're in the finals. There's not many games that keep doing this, but you still have an opportunity to do so. For the first time ever, you can build the perfect live NBA Same Game Parlay only with PointsBet. Combine your favorite bets anytime during the game. I try that, you guys. It usually doesn't end up working in my favor, but maybe for the people who use PointsBet, it'll end up better in their favor. And if you want more, you can also boost your live same game parlays. You can watch live, parlay live, and guess what? Boost live with PointsBet. So what are you waiting for? Once a game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. I'm your host, Nicholas Moriano. I'm joined by Lester Wiltfong Jr. from Windy City Gridiron and Khari Thompson from WEEI. All right, guys, I kind of want to talk about this Bears defense because I feel like the discussion, and obviously everyone knows about the hits philosophy. Everybody and their grandmother knows about Matt Eberflus and his hits philosophy and what he's going to bring here to Chicago. But a lot of discussion has been Justin Fields in this offense. In year one, with this new defense going from a 3-4 to a 4-3, with Matt Eberflus, Alan Williams calling defensive plays for the first time in 10 years since he did in Minnesota, what should be expectations for this Bears defense? There's obviously you have Roquan Smith in the middle. You don't even know if you're going to have Robert Quinn. I honestly do not know if Robert Quinn's going to be on this roster come week one. What are your guys' expectations for this defense? Are they just going to create turnovers like they did in Indianapolis and be a force to be reckoned with? But Lester, when you look at what the changes that have been made, what Eberflus is bringing, still some of the holes and question marks in this entire unit, what are your expectations?
I love the philosophy. I love the scheme. I think it's, for Bears fans, it's the old school Tampa too, but it has a brand new twist on it. I think it's been proven. It's a proven system with the Colts. I think that the talent is there to be a pretty good defense. But if you look at the last time the Bears had a really great D, that was 2018. And who's left from that team? I mean, those guys are gone. Eddie Jackson, is that pretty much it? I think was Roquan here that year? I'm not even sure that was his first.
Yeah, that was a rookie year. Yep.
Yeah, a rookie year. So I mean, there's not a lot left, and with Quinn, I think he may be a trade at some point. So the talent's there. There's some guys brought in. Those 2 rookies have to pan out. I think that's going to be key because the secondary last year was atrocious. If you look at, if you're being honest with it, there was some moments there, but overall it just wasn't there. So the Bears got 2 guys in the draft that they hope are plug and play starters. And if those guys play up to expectations, this defense could be, a top half D, but it's all about getting pressure on the quarterback. It's all about, those guys, if they can do it. If Quinn's here, he's going to be in the mix, but you got some other guys off the edge with Muhammad, with Gibson. So if Quinn stays, they have a nice rotation. If Quinn goes, then it's going to be up to some other guys to step up. Snowden, is that guy going to give you something off the edge this year as a second year from his undrafted status? So there's a lot of question marks still, but the talent's there.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be a competitive defense, right? I don't see it being necessarily a really good one because they have talent, but a bunch of it is young talent, kind of unproven talent, especially when you're talking about the rookies and some of the young guys are trying to see like Travis Gibson, trying to see like, okay, can you be an every down starter? Like, do you have that in you? So I think that, they're I think we might see a snap counts, increase in time because, they've got a veteran in front of him now with Muhammad. I think that with the secondary in particular, I think the bump in talent at the very minimum is going to make them, again, more competitive. Will they necessarily be really good? I don't know about that. And as I think about it, I think about, you mentioned Eddie Jackson, right? When Eddie Jackson was a rookie, there were so many times where, he was in the right place. He was moving well out there, but he was just a tick slow because he hadn't seen enough football to be like, oh, I definitely know what's about to happen here, right? And to kind of drive on the ball. So you'd always be like a hair late for getting a pass, breakup or an interception or something like that. That's the kind of stuff that I feel like we should expect from like Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon. They're gonna be there, right? And I think that they are talented enough to the point where they're not just going to get absolutely clowned all the time, but it's going to take some time for them to develop that feel for the game. Once they get it, though, and I think that they are indeed plug-and-play starters. They're very talented, they're very smart, and they should be able to play. I think once they get that down, and maybe you'll start to see it towards the end of the season as they really get comfortable and they adjust the speed of the game, you're going to start to see some of those plays like, oh yeah, like there's that production we thought we were going to have from them. But it's going to be a work in progress. So I think that based on just pure effort, what Matt Eberflus wants his defenses to play like and look like, as well as just solid coaching schematically, which I think that they absolutely bring to the table. I could see them being, a middle of the road defense. I don't think that they are going to be great. I also don't think they're going to be horrible. That's not necessarily, maybe I think people might want to be like, okay, so which one is it going to be, good or bad? But I think fairly in the middle, like in that kind of like 13 to 18-ish range or something like that is where I see them comfortably landing.
Okay, I like that assessment. Just from what I'm seeing early on, what you guys both talked about, like the effort that this defense is going to play with, it was evident when the rookie mini camp was going on, how Eberflus kind of runs that practice, and you constantly are seeing whoever has the ball, it's like everybody's punching out at it. They brought in Peanut Tillman. Everyone's seen like the videos of that, bringing in former Bears to kind of get this philosophy ingrained in them. So I definitely believe that's going to be a part of what this defense plays as. Just to kind of give you guys some stats here. Last season, using Football Outsiders, I think they do a really good job with their metrics and how they kind of weigh a bunch of different factors when doing so. Indianapolis was 8th in total DVOA. The Bears were 13th, and if you look at that number, it doesn't seem like the Bears were a 13th best ranked defense. Where I think the large discrepancy obviously is a turnovers. Indianapolis was second, in total takeaways with 33, the 19 interceptions, the 14 fumbles. Bears tied for 29th with the 16 total, eight fumbles, 8 interceptions, keeping it nice and easy for people to remember there. But when Matt Eberflus started in Indy as a defense coordinator in 2018, the Bears finished that year top of the league in turnovers with the 36. The Colts are 26. If I were to say, okay, the Bears had 16 total takeaways last season, the Colts in 2018 had 26. Do you think they can get in that range between that 16 and 26 mark? Now that it's Eberflus and this Bears defense in his first year, is that maybe a replicable number to get to? I'm just curious.
For me, I think it is. They say you can't coach turnovers. You can't teach them to get turnovers, but the effort that's there. You look at the defense under Lovie Smith. His defenses had the same philosophy, always hustling, always going the ball, always trying to get those strips. And every year his defenses were in the top of turnovers. You can't coach it, but you coach the effort. If it's a mentality you always have, it's always there. If you take a look at the year when it was the Trestman defense, there was the ball on the ground with Lance Briggs, no one picked it up. These guys were in a hustle-based defense for years, but just 1 year out of the system and the ball just sitting on the ground. That doesn't happen with Coach Eberflus, with Coach Smith in this Tampa 2, this hits philosophy. And I think just having that mentality back where it's going to be preached into them all the time, the whole practice in meetings all the time, go after the ball, strip it, punch it out. I think that mentality will carry over, and, they may not lead the league in turnovers, but the turnovers should, they should increase a little bit.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% in agreement with that. And, turnovers are, takeaways are variable, right? Like, and I mean, we've seen that, right? The 36 takeaways that year was, something they didn't even really come close to approaching after that, because I mean, sometimes it's just when it rains, it pours. And when you have a defense like that, I call maybe the Bears defense wasn't quite on that level, but I like to talk about once in every 15 years defenses, sometimes like the 2000 Ravens or the 2015 Broncos, right? Like you see defenses like that are just like, wow, that was amazing. And the Bears kind of had that, that sort of ability and production. And I think that they don't have that right now, because I mean, you don't have Khalil Mack storming off the edge, like a healthy, Khalil Mack coming off the edge and forcing fumbles all the time necessarily, right? But the first thing that popped into my mind when you're talking about, takeaways, like if you have Jaquan Brisker instead of, Tashawn, Gibson just kind of swatting at balls and letting them clang off his fingers or something like that, it's like, yeah, that's probably worth an extra 2 or 3 right there just by itself. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think that generally more bodies to the ball means you're going to have more chances, right? Swarm to the football and get extra pairs of arms and hands in there. And just generally, like when you do that, that increases the probability that you're going to force more turnovers. So I would expect them to see a bit of a jump here. The 20s should definitely be something that I think we should expect, even if the defensive talent isn't necessarily ungodly, right? Just the pure act of run to the football every single play, rip at it, poke at it. If the ball's in the air, get your hand on it as best you can, sell out for that stuff. I think you're going to see a little bit more production there for sure.
I like that. And I see one of our commenters here, it was Kyle M. He said, with our schedule, you look at some of the quarterbacks the Bears are going to face this season, it's not the daunting lineup that they had a year ago. Like there's
not
a couple
going to be
like
what the Patriots have to face.
Exactly. And they'll face Mac Jones obviously this season. They'll face, maybe a Trey Lance. You have Jared Goff twice. You have Marcus Mariota in the Atlanta Falcons, right? So it's like the level of quarterback play and just some of the teams they face in general. Davis Mills also being in that quarterback class as well. The Bears will face this season. There might just be more opportunities in itself due to the opponents they play. You preach that philosophy, that run to the football, that constantly swiping down at the ball to create fumbles, things like that. Maybe good things will happen for the Bears, and they can actually change the narrative of what this defense has become. One last thing about the defense, you guys, that I kind of want to ask you about. The 3-tech position that they have right now in Justin Jones, obviously not the Bears' first choice, being that Larry Ogunjobi was their high-ticketed free agent that they wanted, as everyone knows, didn't pan out. How do you just feel right now about the interior defensive lineman? It looks like it's going to be Justin Jones as that 3-tech. And from what I saw in practice, it was Angelo Blackson being the guy right next to him. And we've heard along with the hits philosophy, how important the 3-tech is for this defense, what it does for the linebackers, and obviously how it also can affect the secondary. Just your initial thoughts and how you're kind of feeling confidence-wise, maybe the interior defensive lineman, that rotation, and Justin Jones being their guy, even though he was a plan B.
Yeah, I mean, they call the 3-tech the engine that runs the defense, and I think right now that engine they're not sure what they have in there. I think Justin Jones, he had some injuries with the Chargers. He has some nice tape out there, but Again, consistency. Is he going to be the guy that could do it for you? Blackson's going to be over at the nose. He may get some time at the 3 tech as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, Mario Edwards, will he fill in there? I think right now Justin Jones is going to be the guy that, he's going to have that spot to start off. But again, what's his percentage of snaps going to be? Are the Bears going to trust him to be the bulk there? Because you need that guy that can disrupt. That guy like Akeem Hicks who can, shoot that one gap and be powerful enough to hold his ground and be smart enough to not flow too far away from the play. Can Justin Jones be that guy? I mean, he's never been a Pro Bowler. He hasn't had the accolades. Even the guy they had before with Larry Ogunjobi. I mean, he had a bunch of sacks, with the Browns, with the Bengals. So he's not that same player, but he is young. So I mean, the Bears are banking on his best football being in front of him. Time will tell. I mean, right now, if you do look at where the Bears have some issues on defense, the secondary has been shored up with the draft. Interior D line. You have to see if these guys will all step up. And I think it's possible, but again, time will tell on these guys.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the areas on the defense where it feels like it's lacking in top end talent, and I think that's what the Larry Ogunjobi signing was supposed to do. Not that he's necessarily the most elite 3 tech in the league, but I mean, that was a proven player. Right. And I mean, I've been watching him going back to, 2017 when he was with the Browns. Right. I mean, he's a good player. And, to think that, OK, maybe we can coach, a little bit more out of him. But he's already an established guy. And I feel like Justin Jones, you're kind of thinking to yourself, like, yeah, I mean, I see the tools. Right. So it's like maybe there are tools there and you're hoping that you can get more production out of him. I mean, when you look back at it, his, going back to Pro Football Focus a little bit, his best season was in 2020. His highest graded season, just overall, and as a run defender in particular. He's not necessarily going to give you a ton when it comes to pass rushing production. His highest pressures on a season was 18. So it definitely seems like he's maybe more of a space eater kind of thing, and he's maybe going to be more important as a run defender and just like, look, hold your ground and occupy things when the pass rush comes along. And I think you would like to see more from Justin Jones than that. Right now, I'm not sure if he's got that. Angelo Blackson was a nice player last year. He really was. If this is going to be the interesting part, like, is he in every, like, is he a starting caliber player now, as opposed to a guy that, kind of comes in for, Goldman or Akeem Hicks. And it's just like, oh yeah, like I got my motor running hot now for a couple of snaps. And then boom, like, I'm killing it. Right. So I think he's earned an opportunity to get a longer look. So as far as Mario Edwards and in Kairos Tonga is another guy that we haven't talked about. Those guys are fine as depth pieces, but again, how much are you going to ask from them? How big is the depth role you're going to ask? Because if you're relying on them for significant stats, snaps a game, that part I don't know about.
Yeah, no, that's again, I feel like a lot of these players, and we brought up the receiving core earlier, right? Where it seems like this coaching staff just wants to find out what do they got in each one of these guys in terms of depth, and what will be the components moving forward into what should be a more entertaining 2023 season, to be completely honest, you guys. I know we're all kind of feeling probably similar there, but yeah, that's an area where I looked at the roster, look how they're kind of lining up. Like in that practice too, Dominique Robinson, their 5th round draft pick, was the opposite end of Travis Gibson. You're going with the starting unit just because Alquan D. Muhammad has not been at practice. Robert Quinn, like we were talking about earlier, he has not been at practice. Don't know if he's going to be on this team come week 1. So there's a lot of young pieces throughout this entire roster that you can look at to see, well, the team wants to see what they have in them, and I'm sure fans do as well. Before we get to the last segment of our show, to tell you about CHGO. All right, Chicago sports fans, if you aren't a member of our CHGO family, at this point, what are you waiting for? What's going on? Do you need an open invitation? Here it is. Members will have access to all of our premium content from all of our great writers. You also get a free t-shirt of your choice when you become a member, and you get access to the members-only Discord, the CHGO Lounge. And of course, we have podcasts and live shows on every team and every day, and you never know who's going to show up. Could be Lesser, could be Khari. We never know. So that's why you got to have those notifications on. Make sure you're following us at CHGO. So make sure you come join this amazing family that is constantly growing here at CHGO and PointsBet. That's a big part of CHGO as well. If you enjoy what we're doing here, again at CHGO, one way to help us to continue to grow is to download that PointsBet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. Not only are you going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but if you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content. You'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. If you have any questions, probably know the email by now. You can email PointsBet at allchgo.com and we'll help you out. And in case you missed it, online sign-up is available in Illinois. You'll be signing up with the fastest sportsbook, easier than ever, so you can start living your bet life in seconds. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. All right, you guys, I wanted to have a kind of a fun, to me it's fun last segment of this show here. And of course, if any fans have questions, feel free to put them in the chat here. We'll definitely get to those. But I wanted to know, we're all a part of this Bears Twitter community. We're all in the same group chat, right? But there's an area of Bears Twitter that can be polarizing, that can be, quite frankly, annoying. And I just wanted to know, you guys, out of all the things that you see on the Bird app here, what are some of the things that I guess annoy you the most? I'll just start it off to kind of give you where I'm looking at here, because we're June 1st, man, and there's sometimes I feel like there's so many intelligent people in the Bears Twitter community. Like, you can learn so much from a bunch of different people depending on who you follow. But if you have a take, you do a podcast, write an article, tweet something that kind of goes against the majority, but you support it well. You're not doing it to just be, the outlier here. Man, do people go after you. It's like, it seems like that some people believe there's only one right answer to things, when usually that isn't the case. And I felt like over the years, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And then we kind of get like a Bears community that usually more times than not gets split into subcategories. And I don't think that's how it should be, but I feel like every NFL team kind of has similar things going on. But are there any things that you see on Twitter, especially pertaining to the Bears, or maybe it could be any professional team, where you're like, damn, why is it that way?
You want to take this one, Lester, to start off, because I got to say, like,
You can take it.
Oh, okay. So I'm a little bit more tuned in. I'm pretty tuned into both Bears Twitter and Patriots Twitter. So can confirm it can get like that, across fan bases. And I know I follow people from other fan bases too. So it's like, oh yeah, there are definitely segments where it's just like, come on, man. Like, we don't have to be doing this kind of ridiculous hot takey thing. Honestly, if you want my honest opinion, basically anything about Justin Fields that isn't a direct report from what he did on the field, I can't look at it. I don't care. Okay, I don't.
But there was
that
30-second clip on the .com that showed him throwing something. Come on, we have to break down that 30-second clip.
Yeah, and we got to break it down. It's in slow motion, and somebody's like, "Oh yeah, like the release looks slow," and it's just like, yeah, because it's in slow motion. Okay, like, come on, man. Like, or it's like, oh yeah, the way that he dropped the ball below his waist. Like, first of all, no, we didn't. Second of all, your ass ain't Tom House. Like, come on. Like, I feel like we gotta stop this, where like everybody, and I'm not gonna act like I know every single thing about quarterbacking or quarterbacking mechanics or anything. I watch film. We all watch film. We get into that, right? But in the end, there are just certain things like we don't know how it's gonna look until real football happens, right? And all the discussion about, oh yeah, like, what actually got me in regards to Fields, right, is there was like the One Athletic article that came out a couple months ago. I think it was before the draft, and it was about like what league-wide people are saying about Justin Fields, and there was one line in that article talking about some people are concerned about his throwing motion, and the rest of it was largely positive or at least neutral. But that one line from the article about, oh yeah, people are concerned about his throwing motion, that becomes the headline for everything, right? And I'm just like, this is so annoying. Like, I want this storyline to go away so bad. The other one that I can really do without is people talking about how old Velus Jones is. Like, yeah, okay, I get it. The dude's 25. Can we actually wait to see what he does on the football field before we get all mad about it? Also, don't care if he signs a second contract right now. How about we see if he's good, and then we'll talk about signing him to a second deal. That kind of thing is maybe a little bit more I've been around the Patriots beat too long, and they just get rid of people, and it's just like, oh yeah, they got rid of that guy after his first contract. Whatever, we'll just make a new one.
Reload.
So those kinds of things are what get me, and why I'm like, man, if I search like the Chicago Bears like OTAs, or I search Justin Fields and I see something that isn't like, this is how he did in practice today, or this is what, one of his coaches said about him, like directly from the source, then I'm like, nope, don't need it.
I mean,
what about you, Lester?
We're always going to overanalyze things, especially with the quarterback spot. I mean, that's, it's a quarterback-driven league. That's the most important position in all of team sports. So he's going to get overanalyzed no matter what. But for me, the thing that kind of annoys me is it's okay for people to change their mind. You don't have to dig up a take that I had or that Nick had or someone had, 3 years ago, because that take is no longer valid. It's sports. It's always changing. It's always evolving. My thoughts on a certain player, it can change year to year. It's okay. And some people, they want to have it in their mind where this is their take. And it's like, even though data has changed, things have changed, they stay on that take. It's like, it's okay to change your mind. That player you loved in 2018, he's not the same player he is now. It's okay not to like him anymore. As far as a fan goes, it's what he's given to the team is different now. So it's this thing where you get attacked for changing your mind, or it's like you don't want to be flexible. This is sports, man. I mean, it's like when I was coaching, there's a whole bunch of different ways to coach the same exact technique. There's different ways to get there. And I think that's, as far as what we do, as far as, looking at the team, there's a lot of ways to get where we're trying to get to, and those are going to change through time. So I think just the fact that, harping on the same thing over and over and over and over when data has changed, to me, that gets to me sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Just to like make it quick, right? I think that we, on whether it's just like, Twitter, or even sometimes, like
that's social media as a whole.
Yeah. And it becomes about, okay, who can dig their heels in the hardest, and like who can be the most immovable from their like irrational take or something like that. And it's just like, it's smart to recognize when you might be wrong, or if you don't entirely know what's going on, and you get more information on it. Like, okay, I learned a little something here. Or it's like, you know what, like based on like what I read here, like, yeah, maybe my ideas changed. Like, that's smart. Like, that's not bad. Right. And I think that we definitely, whether it's, social media or just media in general, sometimes we get so wedded to our perception of how we think things are or how they should be, that we don't allow ourselves to give things a chance in a way, or allow our minds, I think, to be open to the fact that, hey, guess what? We might be wrong, or so I mean, I 100% agree with you on that.
I like, man, that's a really good point, because you put something out there, you guys, it's gospel now. Now everyone, like, that's what you believe.
Nick said
and
it, damn it.
Yeah, he said it back in 2020. We're in 2022. So no, it's a really good point, because like you guys said, players change, schemes change. There's so much change in the NFL on a given year that the expectations for a player can change. The expectations for a season can change midway through a season because XYZ player got hurt. Like that happens. But another thing, just to kind of add on to this, and I'll stop my my venting here. Doesn't it always seem like when one, like you were kind of saying, Khari, like if somebody put something out, like every national media outlet's like coming out with their spin-off of whatever it may be, and especially if it's like Justin Fields, who's only going into year 2 and is with Matt Nagy in his last season, that now there's a spin-off of this media outlet saying this, all this negativity, let's pile it up on this young quarterback that has still so much to prove, yet it seems like all right, let's already put him under the bus because for what? That's the problem that I can't really figure out. It's like things just pile on coincidentally all at once. Like one media outlet has it, then here's the next one, and that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, I mean it's like definitely kind of a sharky, sort of thing to do. And one thing like on like out here on this end, right, is right after the Patriots had their draft, and I know this happened with the Bears too, because I was in the chat rooms, I saw the reactions to the pick, and I was kind of laughing from afar because I was covering the Patriots, so I wasn't really going in on the Bears that much. But the immediate reaction to the draft, where it's like, oh, I hate that pick. Like you get a D, like a D grade for like this pick that you made. Like the Patriots taking Cole Strange in the first round. Like, yeah, it was pretty weird. I'm not going to lie. Right. And then, Tyquan Thornton, trading up for, the Patriots trading up for him to number 50, and everybody hates it. And, they should have gone like, 2 or 3 rounds later. And it's like, and then you find out down the line. And I mean, I literally talked to someone yesterday, an insider that said the Chicago Bears really likes Tyquan Thornton and wanted to take him on day 2, as it were. And that he was actually like quite possibly their wide receiver 1, which might explain why they weren't taking some of these other guys. Right. And whatever you think of that evaluation, right, sometimes you just don't know all the facts. But people, jump into it with like, oh yeah, like Mel Kiper says this was a terrible idea. And you know what? Maybe it will be a terrible idea. We don't know because we haven't seen these dudes play yet. But people are just kind of like, yes, like this is exactly how it would have happened because so-and-so, like this consensus of draft experts said so. But it's like, we don't know entirely when, certain players would go, because I think we found out that sometimes teams just value players differently. Sometimes people get valued lower than you expect. Sometimes people get valued more highly than you expect. And in the end, it doesn't matter. And like once the pads come on, like your draft status like isn't really that important anymore. Can you play football? Right? And so no one is going to care if you overdrafted a guy if he's good, right? So it's like things like that. The jumping on the train of like, oh, well, so, and this national outlet or like this local outlet said something, and now we got to, talk about how horrible it was because that's the consensus. And it's like, you know what? It's okay to wait. It's okay to wait to express your opinion. It's okay to reserve judgment.
Yeah, no, that was so well said. And I think it goes back to how we kind of started this, where you were kind of mentioning how teams can value things differently. There's not always one answer to a lot of these things. And that's why, usually when we get into these arguments and stuff, there's a basis that kind of goes into that. But man, you guys, I just want to say thank you to both of you. Such short notice for hopping on the CHGO Bears podcast. You guys are awesome. I would have just been here talking mindlessly for an hour. God knows where that conversation would have gone. Probably full circle. Who knows? Maybe a left turn, right turn. Who knows? But that's going to do it for this Wednesday edition of the CHGO Bears podcast. Like I said, Lester, Khari, thanks so much for joining and doing this on such short notice. Before I close out the show, though, Lester, let our listeners know where they can find your work and, how they can follow you.
WindyCityGridiron.com. We got a podcast channel. We got all 5-6 shows on there right now. Second City Gridiron is actually our video home as well. And then, of course, I am on Twitter at Wiltfong JR.
Awesome. And Khari, when the Bears, look, I'm already going to plug this now. When the Bears play the Patriots on that Monday night game, we already know you're going to be a great resource for Bears fans. But where can they find your work and stay up to date with you?
Hey, you already know I'm looking forward to it. Well, I'm not looking forward to the fact that it's on Monday night and I have to drive back from Foxborough at like 3 a.m. I'm not looking
I'll be there. I'll be there too. So we'll have to link up before maybe the game or whatever, but I will be there at that game to cover it. So that'll be fun.
Yeah. And when that happens, when I eventually come back on here, we got to talk about our experience down at the Combine and how we walked up on Allen Robinson while we were both a couple of drinks deep. But okay,
we have some time right here, Khari. Like I wanted to definitely get to that. Yeah. So first of all, that I met Khari for the first time in person at this past NFL scouting combine. And of course, being Bears fans, we connect and get to talk with Allen Robinson.
Yeah, so I mean, we were both hanging out like at the bar at, was it High Velocity? Right. Yeah,
yes.
High Velocity is the name of the club there. And so we just kind of, we knew Allen Robinson was there, and then we kind of saw him hanging out in the foyer over there talking to Tyke Tolbert, current wide receivers coach for the Chicago Bears, and we were like, oh, I wonder what they're talking about. It's like Tyke's probably, maybe trying to, maybe they're just reminiscing because as Allen Robinson told us, him and Tyke go way back because Tyke was a part of, one of the, coaching staffs that was scouting him pretty heavily when he was coming out of the draft. And so, they go way back. He clearly has a lot of respect for him. And I couldn't help but think like, yeah, maybe Tyke's kind of running the game, trying to see if he can get Allen Robinson back in Chicago, even though we all kind of knew that wasn't happening. But yeah, we just kind of pulled up on A-Rob, and it was us and Adam Hogue, and we just kind of held court with him for about 20 minutes talking about route techniques and just like what he's looking for. And we were both kind of sitting there for a moment wondering if we were gonna talk to him or not. I'm definitely pretty introverted, so that's not necessarily the first thing I go for. But I had like 4 drinks by that point, so I was able to throw caution to the wind a little bit. So that was good times.
Yeah, and you know what? I felt like after that moment too, Khari, like I kept seeing him. Like you would walk from High Velocity downtown. It's like, oh, there's A-Rob again. Oh, there he is again. Like, why are you here? But it's like it kept running into him.
Yeah, no, and that's how it always is, right? When you see somebody, you talk to him for the first time, then all of a sudden it's like, I'm seeing you everywhere. I'll say this, I never talked to Coach Eberflus, but I saw him everywhere. Like we were hanging out like at the other Hilton or whatever, the one with the Starbucks on the bottom floor or whatever.
Okay, yeah.
And I swear I saw him every day. Like he got the same like little mineral water thing. Or
it's the same one.
Yeah. It's like a lemon or like whatever water every single day. And I was just like, man, should I go talk to him? It's like, well, he's probably busy right now. But all of that was a complete digression from the first thing you asked me to do, which was to say where you can follow me, which is on Twitter at KD Thompson 5. You can also follow my work on weei.com, both written and occasionally I'll be on the radio.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much again, and make sure you're following. They just gave the Twitter handles where you follow their work, so make sure you're following Lester and Khari, and also CHGO. Check us out on all of our social media platforms, CHGO_Bears, CHGO_Sports, myself at Nicholas Moriano. But that will do it for today's show. Everyone enjoy the rest of your day, and until next time, bear down, Chicago.